Hi, I'm Streaky from Streaky.com. Today I answer your questions from the comments because it's Friday, it's Q&A day. I'm Streaky, I'm a mastering engineer. I've been a mastering engineer for the past 25 years, working with high-end and low-end and anybody in between. I'm here talking about pro audio, mastering, mixing, hi-fi, headphones, everything to do with audio, whether that's room acoustics, whatever. So if you like that kind of thing, I'm here every day. Subscribe, ring the bell so you get notified, and on with the Q&A, Friday's Q&A. So this is from Ross Adams. He says 2 questions. What do you do when a track needs different EQ treatment in different sections of the track? And can you do it on the fly? Do you print every section separately when you put it together in SADI? And why do mastering engineers use SADI or Sequoia? Is it okay to use Pro Tools or Logic? Okay, so the first question is, do I master things separately in different parts of the track? Most of the time, no. What you're trying to do is to find a sound across the whole track, so something that works. So you're doing a kind of general EQ across the whole thing and a general dynamics, because you'll kind of want the track to sit together and that kind of give it that kind of finish and that veneer. So you don't really want to be treating the chorus differently to the verses. A lot of that is done in the mix, so that say the chorus will pop out more because of the level differences in the balance and stuff. So a lot is done at mix stage. That happens naturally because obviously the compressor is only going to kick in on the chorus. So, you're more likely to set the compressor up around the chorus rather than on the verses, because when the louder parts hit, then the compressor's got to work in a certain way. Now, sometimes if there's things that are sticking out the mix and it's not a question, you can go back to the mix engineer and ask them to do a tweak. You can use like dynamic EQ or multi-bands to sort of grab certain sections of the track so that when it's coming up, it's not doing anything until that point, then it will either suck it or add it or however you're doing that. So yeah, that's kind of a dynamic way of using stuff. That kind of happens naturally as well, because you might set up a multi-band to like do the kick or just do the tops, or a de-esser to do the tops. So yeah, it kind of happens dynamically as you're mastering across the whole track. But I don't ever tend to go, okay, there's an EQ for the verse, there's an EQ for the chorus, because it just kind of sounds a bit disjointed throughout. So yeah, I tend to kind of set up a sound for all of it, and then I'll use some dynamic stuff. In the olden days, when you were cutting to vinyl, so you were going direct from tape or direct from your source through the desk to vinyl, and you're kind of live cutting, then yeah, you have to make tweaks on the go, but that's more filters, as in cutting the tops at certain areas or using a de-esser. And a lot of the times there's called an acceleration limiter on a lathe, and that's basically a high-end limiter. And so you'd use that, and it's coming up because you've got a delay on the lathe, so you kind of cut it in as the delay comes, so you're kind of on the fly. You can do that also in the box, but you're more likely to maybe automate a de-esser. But I tend not to go that far into stuff. I just want to get a sound, and I'll let the de-esser, or the multiband do the de-essing as that part of the track comes, and then just set it up accordingly within my computer. I will kind of manually adjust a de-esser again. That just goes back to my lathe days, but mainly the answer to that is no. Second part of the question is, why do mastering engineers use SADI, Sequoia, Pro Tools? I've gone through all this. I've used them in the past. At the moment, the way I'm set up, because I've got loads of ins and outs and loads of things happening, because I'm hybrid, I'm using Pro Tools mainly. It's mainly because I'm a Mac boy. I used SADI when I was at Metropolis constantly. Very good, great for editing. The main reason you use those softwares is because you're doing DDP files. There's certain dithers that you might like in there. It's more to do with the kind of output and the laying it off, where I find I can do that in other software that I use. There's a bit of software out there called Sonic Solutions, which was sort of one of the very first mastering softwares. That had a real good sound to it. It's something to do with the way it was set up. There was just the sort of sound of it. It just had a certain sound. But the problem was with that, it just kept crashing all the time. So you can still buy that. It's called Soundblade. It's really great. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. The editing on it was really cool. It was really fast. I was so quick on it. It was great. Just kept crashing. So it was just unworkable in the end. Some people have got it working, and maybe I'll give that another try. But yeah, I mean, it's more to do with editing and the final stage of why mastering engineers are doing that, because they don't want to have to go to another bit of software afterwards. They want to just keep it all in the same project and just keep it that way. But I'm finding Pro Tools works really well for me, just because of the different D2As and the A to Ds that I use, and I'm using different plugins. They all kind of work Pro Tools. It all kind of syncs up nicely. So yeah, that's really it. Okay, next question is from Doid1. If you were to mix and master on one set of headphones and you have a great budget, what type of headphones would be your choice? Okay, so I'm going to start reviewing more and more headphones, I think, because more and more people ask me questions like this about different headphone types. So stay tuned. I'll try and get one out a week, headphone-wise. More people are using them. Personally, for me, mastering with headphones, I've said this in previous videos, it's not something that I would necessarily do. I like to have the kind of room and the feel and the, being able to move around. I like that about mastering. I want to hear a stereo image in front of me on speakers. So for me, it's not something that I would naturally do, but I do use them for QCing, having a different environment. Everyone's listening on headphones, so it's good to listen back to stuff on headphones, just to check things. You can sometimes hear clicks or knocks or things that, because you're listening so intensely on your headphones, you don't necessarily hear on your speakers, and slight distortions and things. So they're really good from that point of view, but just for EQing and things, I much prefer having a set of speakers in front of me and kind of drilling into those and having it as a kind of feel thing as much as a sound thing. So for me, if I was going to use headphones, the current models I would use is the Focal Clears. If you like the sound of Focal speakers, you'll like the sound of those. They're really good. I think you need to be spending around the £1,000 mark. If you start going more than that, you're into like really fine tuning details. Any less, they're just not going to be as good as the ones that are around the kind of 800 to 1200 mark. The Sennheiser 800Ss that I reviewed, I'll put a link there. They are amazingly good, really good for working on. Love them, really lightweight, really easy, nice. Audeze do a load of good headphones. They're worth looking at. The LCDs, I've not reviewed those yet. I'll get some in to review, but I have listened to those before. They're really good. Yeah, those kind of three makes are really good to look at. So I would go Focal, Audeze and Sennheiser. So the next one is from A3 Production. He said, love your story, man. Keep up the hard work as usual. Thanks very much. Pleased you're watching. Also, I'm planning on doing a small mastering studio. Which gear would you advise me to try as I'm living in Saudi Arabia? Can't demo stuff. Any advice would be helpful. Okay, so there are some kind of, I think we're talking out of the box here, because in the box you can obviously demo whatever you want. So with my experience of out of the box things, for mastering anything that's Maselec, you can't go wrong. So even if you bought all Maselec equipment, you'd be fine. You wouldn't need to buy anything else. That's kind of go-to. Dangerous stuff, really good. I've got the backs I really like. I'm using the Liaison at the moment, which is really cool for doing kind of parallel stuff. So dangerous, really good quality builds things. So I don't think you can go wrong there. I think Maselec, as I say, and if you want more tubey stuff, I would probably go for some Manly gear. So as a second EQ, I would have a Manly Massive Passive. I liked their new Mew. That was really good that I tested the other week. Multi-band that is Maselec's really good. So that's kind of it. I would just stick to those. Those three makes are really solid. GML EQs, obviously, this is all kind of older stuff. Buzz Audio do a really good EQ. If you're looking for A to D, D to A converters, Prism, you can't go wrong. Lavry, pretty good. You can't go wrong there either. I've got the gold there, which I'll review next week. So yeah, those kind of solid, they're not cheap gear, but they're really solid. They're always going to hold their value. So if you buy them, you can't really do wrong out of that. So yeah, that's what I would pick. So next one, Michael Reinhardt from 4 days ago says, hashtag #Streaky. If you could only master in the box, what would be your go-to, I'm guessing he means there, plugins and ideal flow? On a follow-up, what would you replace with hardware in order to transition me? Okay, so what you're really wanting to know is what can you use at home that I have got here that you can get cheaper and replace as plugins? So, okay, now this is a kind of plug-in in the box hybrid question, really, and they're so different. I'm a hybrid guy. I use some plugins after my analog gear. I also do sometimes master in the box, probably 1% of the time. 1 out of 100 tracks maybe is in the box. I find it's horses for courses. Some things just go through my analog equipment, and I find that they'll distort, or the compressors that I've got aren't quick enough, or I want to get a certain level into the gear and it's not handling it well. That's kind of the reason why I would more tend to be kind of totally in the box. Tubes, harmonics on some tubes sometimes just don't like it. You can't push the levels. So really, when I start working on a mix, I'll find out, okay, what can this mix handle and what do I want to get from it? And then I kind of work out what I'm doing from there. Compression in the box, not really a big fan, more likely to use analog equipment. EQ. There are some really nice EQs now in the box. FabFilter stuff you can't go wrong with. Sonox EQs, their new dynamic EQs, really nice. I mean, Slate stuff's all right. I like their things. The BX Digital, loads of people talk about that. The compression's okay, but you know, you're not, a lot of the time, the reason why I'm using hybrid stuff is really flavors of EQ, flavors of compression, depth of sound, the kind of warm and the glue that you get out of analog equipment. So that's kind of why I'm going out the box, to kind of give it all of that before I maybe might add something. You know, I might use a Vice Digital hardware EQ. Mainly I'm going to use in the box things for limiting, and limiting's so important now for mastering because you're trying to make up about 8 dB of gain after your analog chain. So I'd use a couple of different limiters. There's a load of limiters that I use and have them all racked up ready and just sort of flick between them to know what I like. Sort of standard ones, definitely FabFilter and Sonox again. So yeah, certain ones that you might use, but I don't think I could ever replace my analog equipment. It's just you just don't get that same sound feel. For me, moving the knobs, brilliant. It's just kind of part of that moving the knobs is a mental thing as well. I'm not necessarily saying that all plugins are bad, but giving a bit of feel sometimes gets you into the track and gets you sort of feeling it a bit more and sort of getting you more involved. So that's kind of part of the process, really. But yeah, there's no way you can replace analog equipment totally, I don't believe. For a mastering situation, mixing totally different. But for mastering, I just want to get the depth of feels, certain sounds. So yeah, try out all those plugins that I said, but as a workflow, try and use as little as possible. Try and use one compressor, one EQ. That's the best you can do, and learn those and just use those. That's it. Don't keep throwing more and more things in. You're better off just using the sound of one across the mix rather than adding loads of different flavors of plugins in. The more flavors you add in, the more confusing it gets. So just use one, learn that sound, know that sound, so it's a go-to. That's why you should only use a few different plugins all the time, so you really know how they sound and how you're going to get a quick result. So yeah, that's my advice on that. Okay, DJ Night Train. If you're using a speaker with DSP like the 8C or anything with an AES or even analog inputs, does that mean we're only listening to the DAC of the speaker? Doesn't that make the Bricasti DAC? Basically, do you need to use your own DAC? I'm guessing. You are always going to be listening to the DAC in the speaker because the speaker is either taking an analog input, changing it A to D, and then throwing it out via its DSP to the output of the speakers. So it's always using its own digital conversion inside if it's a digital speaker. If you're using a passive speaker like the ones I have here, there's no DSP involved. You're using an amplifier and it's all kind of a naturalness that's giving you that sound. The reason to kind of steer clear sometimes of digital speakers is the fact that they've got chips in them for the DAC, and the DAC, obviously that's going to limit their lifespan. You're not going to be able to upgrade those chips to get the speaker sounding better, but then the speaker is that sound. I mean, the chip's going to break after a while maybe, but you know, tweeters break, and so you have to replace things. And also replacing the DAC's chips inside is also the same as, say, maybe changing your amp and upgrading that down the line. So, you know, there's fors and against. It doesn't make me feel great about using their DAC, but if that's the kind of sound of their speaker that they've given you and you like that sound when you listen to it, then great. You can't clock that sound. You can't, it's not in the same way as other digital equipment, but you could go digitally straight in and use their DAC, which is the answer to the question. But you would need some kind of monitor panel that has digital in, digital out, so that you weren't having to go analog at any point, so that obviously you're then getting rid of the use of having your DAC. You would also need some way then of A being between those two. So it's kind of some kind of switching system within your monitor panel. I don't know if there is a monitor panel that does that. Let me know in the comments if you do know of one, because then ideally, yeah, you go straight out of your computer digitally, straight into the speakers, and then within the computer do some kind of routing to be able to hear what's going on and some kind of level. Yeah, you could get rid of a D to A, but you know, more than likely most people have got a monitor panel that's analog, so you're going to need some kind of D to A to get into that monitor panel and be able to listen to the different inputs and whatever you want to listen to. So that's kind of how it is. There's not really a solid answer there. You need to listen to the speakers, see if you like the speakers, see if you like what the DSP and those speakers is doing. If you're using something like SonarWorks or Trinov, then you're kind of doing a DSP thing before the speakers as well to adjust that sound, so you're kind of similar in a way. So the final question today is from Salon Music. Interested to hear what you're using as an A to D conversion and your thoughts on various high-end options, Lavery Gold, Prism, blah, blah. At the moment, I'm using the Prism Live Lyra for my A to D. I found I really like the Prism sound on A to D, really good. It's clocked by the Black Lion audio clock, so it's not using the Prism clock. It just sounds tighter to me. So at the moment it's that. However, seeing that you're mentioning A to Ds, I've got a dangerous A to D, which I'm checking out, but I'm not allowed to review apparently, but I'll still be checking it out for my own personal benefit. Sorry about that. Not my fault, Dangerous. Speak to them. They don't want me to do their gear. And I've also got the Lavery Gold here. I can't do a shootout between the two, obviously, because of Dangerous not wanting it. I'll give you a sound bite of the Lavery compared to the Prism, and I will tell you a little bit about the Dangerous. I can't sort of do a full demo on that. Yeah, so it will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'll do some more stuff on A to D conversion, and then I'll give you more thoughts on which I think are good and if I'm changing or if not. So to come. So I hope you liked the video. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments or hashtag #AskStreaky on Twitter. If you've got this far and you want me to master some music for you, there is a discount code below. But the most important thing is you go to streaky.com, sign up to my newsletter. It comes out once a month. And it's full of discounts, giveaways and whatever that I've been doing on YouTube or things that I can't do, and I can point you to good stuff. So go to streaky.com, sign up to the newsletter, and you'll get it once a month, start of every month. Yeah, thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye.